approach. The M2 stays closed eastbound at junction 6 at Faversham. Those overnight roadworks are still taking place and there are still delays of about 3 miles on the approach. Queues of about 20 minutes on the M40 southbound to junction 6 at Watlington. Those emergency repair works are taking place and 2 lanes are closed and 1 lane is closed northbound and it's slow for about 20 minutes on the approach. And on the underground, the Bakerloo line's now running but with severe delays.
This is LBC.
Every window open.
Ferrari now 0345 6060 973 LBC. Ferrari at breakfast on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
10 minutes before 8, back then to this conversation about this new migrant bill. A lot of you supporting it, but you have questions how it will work, so no one better to turn to than the Home Secretary, who is announcing it today, Priti Patel, who joins me now. Home Secretary, good morning. Thank you for coming on the show. I understand that you would seek the power to deport some illegal immigrants within 24 hours. How would that work in practice?
So first of all, Nick, good morning.
Good morning, Home Secretary.
end-to-end reform that I am announcing today, and we're publishing a command paper, a consultation, and this is for a new immigration plan. So we've already looked at legal routes, so points-based system, and we need to absolutely be firmer around the whole issue of illegal migration. So you've asked me the question about removing people and returning people. Currently, and I think we should be very upfront about this, we have endless legal challenges, legal appeals, and we are going to bring in changes to that entire system, effectively introducing a one-stop shop so that we cannot get repeat claims from individuals who are refusing to leave the country, but also do much more work with third countries, get bilateral agreements in place so that we can remove people in a much faster way. This change has to happen, quite frankly, because we've not been able to remove people. As we've seen since 2013, the number of removals from the United Kingdom have gone down and down and down. And that is mainly because our courts are now clogged up with all these various cases that keep coming forward.
I see the problem, but how will you affect that within 24 hours, Home Secretary? And how is your one-stop shop different from David Blunkett's one-stop process, as it was called in the early 2000s?
It's fundamentally different. It is fundamentally different.
Go ahead.
This is a judicial reset. So working with the Ministry of Justice, we are effectively looking at how we can streamline the court process. So the one-stop shop effectively means that individuals cannot repeatedly go to the courts with new, fresh claims and new appeals. Instead, they will have to come in at the outset and put all their issues almost on the table, and they'll be supported with the legal aid system, the support that they, receive in terms of getting legal representation. But what we do know is that every time we try to remove individuals that actually have no right to be in the United Kingdom, they'll put claim after claim in. And of course, that can take years and years to actually come to a conclusion.
You're a plain-speaking woman, there's no doubt about it. Are you telling me you're confident that you will have the powers to remove illegal immigrants within 24 hours, Home Secretary?
Look, we're going to work to remove people who should not be in the United Kingdom.
But within 24 hours. I'm sorry to press this point.
In an efficient way. No, Nick, in a swift and an efficient way. The bill, we haven't even got the legislation. We're consulting right now.
Okay.
Consulting, and we will bring in legislation. But I think it's really important that our ability to remove individuals with no right to remain in the United Kingdom is constantly undermined by repeated legal claims designed to impede removal action, and that's effectively what we have to stop and change. And this is a big change, a fundamental change to the legal system, and a resetting of the judicial system around immigration courts, bail and tribunal.
You're also going to be looking at what's called family reunification rights, Home Secretary. What are you and your colleagues seeking there?
So, well, first of all, this actually links to part of a lot of the work that we want to do around safe and legal routes and how we resettle asylum seekers. So there's a lot of work that we are proposing through this consultation. First of all, we do want to create safe and legal routes, primarily because we've got to stop people being smuggled into the country illegally. Over 60% of our asylum cases are of people that have come to the country illegally, paying people smugglers, for example. We speak about channel crossings frequently, Nick. I mean, that is one example, people putting their lives at risk, taking perilous journeys. We want to stop that, which is why we are proposing this fundamental change. But alongside this, create safe and legal routes to help women, children, the families that are being left behind, almost elbowed out of the way by these young men that predominantly come over illegally in the hands of people smugglers, when we know that there are many, many people in desperate need that actually need our support.
Some of those young men, you'll be aware, Home Secretary, try to pose as children, and I understand you want to address that and somehow have more rigorous age assessments. How in practice would they work, Home Secretary? Yes,
well, this is a really, really important question. So we are one of the few countries that does not have, other countries in Europe do use this. We do not use scientific age assessments to assess and determine a person's age when they enter our country.
What do we use, Mrs. Patel?
So there is literally, there's discretion of border force.
Oh my God. So I just look at someone and say, you look 20.
If I can just finish, Nick.
Go ahead, Home Secretary.
Social workers are then brought in to literally have discussions and conversations. with the individuals. Now, we do know for a fact that when age has been disputed between 2016 and 2020, 54% of the cases found were discovered to be adults presenting as young children. And of course, that puts a very serious safeguarding risk, to us all, basically. So we want to consult on age assessments. We need to do things differently. We need to have the right kind of safeguarding protocols in place. And of course, these are fundamentally areas where we do need to change the system.
So you're bringing in this scientific kit or equipment or that you referenced?
So again, Nick, we will consult on this through the command paper that I'm publishing today. We will work with specialist organisations. We've got suggestions in terms of how we can do this. And then, of course, we will work through the consultation on the specifics and then look to legislate and bring in changes.
What would be an acceptable number of migrants who make the crossing, allowing you will never be able to stop everybody and allowing that the number has rocketed over recent years? What number are you working towards?
Well, look, I think, first of all, there's a fundamental differentiation here between legally coming to the UK, which is what I'm proposing with safe and legal routes, and illegal migration. We need to change our posture as a country and say no to illegal migration, no to the people smugglers, and no to the criminal gangs. So we are going to base not just the safe and legal routes in particular, we will base that on the need of those that are fleeing persecution and not on arbitrary numbers, which has happened in the past. And that is a fundamental change that we need to bring in as part of this end-to-end review of the system and the reform that we are looking at. There
was a suggestion a week or so ago that we might have sort of camps or centres away from mainland United Kingdom in the Outer Hebrides, the Isle of Man, or was even floated at one point, possibly Morocco. Can you give us details on that, Home Secretary, or have you gone cold on that idea?
No, well, first of all, there's been a lot of baseless speculation, I think, here in the media about options that we are considering. You'll see in the command paper later on today, it's right that we look at all options in terms of accommodation. Currently, we've been housing because of the coronavirus pandemic. Many asylum seekers, people that have come here illegally and claimed asylum in hotels. Now, that is not good for the taxpayer at all. We need to change the way in which we provide accommodation. We have a statutory duty and a responsibility, obviously, to provide safe and secure accommodation. And we will look at how we can bring in changes, including, we will absolutely look at models such as reception centres.
Where? Are we still looking at Morocco and Turkey and Isle of Man?
So I'm not going to comment on countries. This is the point. This is all speculation.
But they're away from UK, are they?
Well, within the UK, we need to provide accommodation. That's our statutory responsibility that we have. So, we're going to change our accommodation model. We've got to move out of this hotel model, which has been linked to coronavirus.
Right.
We use dispersed accommodation. We have to revise our entire accommodation model.
But it will all be UK territories, wherever they may be.
Well, on the issue of that, now you're coming on to the point about removing people.
Yes.
People to safe countries. And let's not forget, many people that travel to the United Kingdom illegally have come through EU countries such as France, Germany, Italy, countries that are safe, where they should be claiming asylum in those countries. So we are looking at removing people to third safe countries. That is part of the work that we're doing. That is part of the bilateral discussions that we will continue to have with many countries.
Last minute or so together, can I just take you into a couple of other areas, as it's always so good to speak with you. Do you agree that the reason Britain has such an outstanding success story regarding vaccinations is because of capitalism and because of greed, as the Prime Minister said?
We have an incredibly successful vaccination programme because of the fact that we are a force for good when it comes to science and technology. Look at the great pharmaceutical companies that, exist in the UK and look at the great work that they've done. They've led the way with the vaccine.
Indeed.
We should be absolutely proud of that. We really should.
But did capitalism and greed play its respective parts, Home Secretary?
Pardon?
Did capitalism and greed play their respective parts?
Well, look, I didn't hear those comments, so I'm not going to get involved in that. But, the role of the free market, having absolutely a diversity in terms of different organisations that we've been able to work with the vaccine is incredibly important.
Last couple of questions. A lot of people are saying there needs to be an inquiry at some point into the government's handling of the pandemic. The Prime Minister seemed pretty lost to that idea. He says that there needs to be something to commemorate those who sadly have passed away, but he doesn't see merit that there should be an inquiry. Do you?
Well, look, I think we have to reflect on the last year, obviously the lockdown anniversary was yesterday. I think there's a time and a place for actually reflection and looking back on what could have been done differently. I do agree with the Prime Minister that coronavirus has changed our lives beyond recognition, and it's left a big scar on many families and individuals that have lost loved ones. And I think having the right kind of commemoration is the right thing to do.
But not an inquiry?
Look, I mean, at some stage, Nick, no doubt there will be a period of, assessing. Yes, how decisions were made, how evidence came together, what information was put together. I'm sure that'll come in due course.
And lastly, 6 former Home Secretaries wrote an open letter to a newspaper earlier this month, some of your predecessors, urging you to order an independent inquiry into Operation Midland, the botched, of course, investigation into claims made by the fantasist Carl Beech. Are you ready to order that inquiry, Home Secretary?
Well, there is work taking place already, Nick, with regards to Operation Midland. There is plenty of follow-up work taking place with the Metropolitan Police. There have been reviews that have taken place. So there's a lot of work that is already underway on this. And I've
current investigations?
Pardon?
Current investigations.
Well, also in terms of the conduct, in terms of what took place within the Metropolitan.
So who is doing that investigating?
Well, the IPC reported, and in terms of recommendations, those are absolutely being followed up in the right way. I'm in the process, and I have spoken about this publicly. I will see Richard Henriquez, who's also been in touch with me in recent weeks, to hear from him specific areas where he feels that more work needs to be done. So I'm not ruling anything out at all. It's right that, we give the Metropolitan Police the time and the space they need as well to follow up on these recommendations.
Some might argue they've had a lot of time. Just to remind the listeners, Sir Richard Henriquez is the retired judge who reviewed Operation Midland and said, quotes, confidence in the police and the Independent Office for Police Conduct has been seriously damaged. You're the Home Secretary. You surely, with Sir Richard, you have to work to put that right.
Well, I will work with Sir Richard Henriquez on that, and that is the point, which is why I will be meeting with him to have those very discussions and conversations. So I don't think it's appropriate just, for me just to give a running commentary.
No, but you're not fighting shy of an inquiry if it were needed.
No, I mean, look, I need to understand myself, and to be very frank, Nick, as well, I have looked into this when I became Home Secretary. As you know, I've met with some of the victims, and it's been terrible, absolutely terrible. And I have spoken about this previously, and it's right that we find justice for them. But also at the same time, I do need to hear from others that have been involved in this to understand the totality of some of the concerns, listen to those concerns, and then act accordingly.
Always good speaking with you. Thank you for your time. Home Secretary Priti Patel appearing here on LBC, where at 3 minutes after 8 news is next.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 8 o'clock, Priti Patel is promising to make it more difficult for asylum seekers to settle in the UK if they've come to the country illegally. The Home